Here we are once again for another edition of the Roundtable on SportsbookReview.com. I got my esteemed panel, and today we're going to talk a little bit of NHL. Look, just because the season is not underway yet, we still have odds out there. Who is going to take it down and win the Eastern Conference, the Western Conference, and more importantly, who is going to take down a Stanley Cup champion? Let me bring in Adam Booth, Chris Giannini, and Ian Cameron. Let's talk some hockey today. Adam, I'm going to start with you first here. We're going to start with the Eastern Conference teams that we think have the best shot to take down the title, and also more importantly, maybe a long shot, or maybe one of those teams that we're not thinking about. It says, hey, you know what? If this is a short series, a 3 or 5 game series, this team might be able to get hot and take down some of the front runners here. If we talk about the Boston Bruins plus 600, the Lightning plus 700, the Capitals plus 1100, even my Philadelphia Flyers coming in at 13-1, and the Penguins also right around even at 13-1 as well. There's some teams that we know are front runners, but in the NHL, hey, it's only as good as how hot it is. Adam, talk about some of these teams that we can look forward to maybe winning the Eastern Conference and making it to the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. I took back in January, I posted 2 Eastern Conference teams. It was the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Tampa Bay Lightning, and it was, I think, 10-1 and 15-1 respectively. I'm still very happy with those. The prices come down on the Lightning because then they went on, another 11-game winning streak or something like that. A lot of that was to do with where are they going to match up in that first round. If they don't have to, if they can get that first spot, which it's not gonna look like they will. It will be the Bruins. But if they had at that time, they might have got a very weak opponent just getting in, maybe like a Florida or something like that. So I'm still very happy with Lightning. I think at this point you don't want to take them. It's 7-1. But as far as the Pittsburgh Penguins, they've dropped back down to 16-1 at BetOnline. The Penguins are a playoff team. They're only 3 seasons removed, from back-to-back Stanley Cups. They're bringing lots of the same pieces back. They have that potent offense. They can put basically any wingers out there with Malkin and Crosby. They're going to find production. On the back end, they did increase their defensive core this past season, and they've also got Yari now playing very well in goal. Yes, Murray slipped off a bit, but again, playoff time, arrested Murray when we return to the season. I'm not going to count them out. I think 16-1 is still a great price on them. So I'm happy letting those ride for now. I think the Bruins are a bit overvalued. And even your Flyers, I would say, given how hot they were coming in previously to where we would be right now at the playoffs, they were looking great. If we were starting tomorrow, I would say they're worth a look as well.
We're all doing our part here, Chris, with the playoffs, or hopefully the NHL playoffs are coming ahead. My hair is growing longer, so I'm growing my playoff hair. But you know what? Chris already has the playoff beard ripping and ready to go as we get in. Eastern Conference Championship odds here that we're looking at here, Chris. Give me some ideas on who you're looking for to take down the conference final, maybe win the Stanley Cup here.
As long as Ovechkin's healthy and Holtby is up in the net, I'm going to just continue to ride with the Washington Capitals. I think, basically 8-1, 8.5-1 is a pretty good, odds for a team that I think has maybe the best leader in all of hockey on their team, and just a guy that I trust in the net during big time. And then they've got the experience. They've got playoff experience, and I think that they can make a run. I like the Bruins a lot, but I don't like the price. That's the biggest thing. I do agree that they're a little bit, overvalued right here. I think they can win it. I don't know that I'd pay for it right now. But that's kind of how I feel in the East.
No, it's interesting that you bring that up, Ian, and we talk about it, and you see Chris obviously in full bloom with the playoff beard. I'm waiting for you, Ian, to start that one going there. We know your hair is going to stay pristine whether or not you go to the barbershop or not. Let's talk a little bit of Eastern Conference hockey. And also, we're seeing some of the favorites in here, Ian. Bruins, Lightning, Capitals, and Flyers already up at the top of the standings. No Canadian teams up there. Can one of the Canadian teams maybe sneak in and steal some thunder? Or it's just going to be one of those things like, hey, I'm going to ride that chalk with the Bruins and the Lightning.
This discussion about futures, one thing I want to point out, this is your money now being tied up for who knows how long, because we don't know how this hiatus is going to go. So if you're going to bet an NHL future at this point, make it worth your while. Okay, don't take Boston 6-1. Don't take Tampa Bay 7-1 in some of these Eastern Conference teams, because you want to put yourself in a situation where you're putting your money out there long term. you want it to be a situation where you could hedge down the road if the need be, and maybe try to earn some profits that way. So right away, if I'm going to recommend futures, Eastern Conference or Western Conference, they've got to be at a decent price right now. Adam brought up Pittsburgh 16-1 offshore at Bet Online. Among other places to win the Stanley Cup. That's not a bad way to go. You get a little better price. You've got the pedigree of Crosby and Malkin. You've got a team that it was a little bit up and down going into the hiatus, but we know they've got the capabilities to be a dangerous team at playoff time. The real long shot big bomb that I would recommend, and this is a team that may not even make the playoffs, but this is a team that I've cashed in with a lot going into this break, the New York Rangers. All right, we don't even know if they're going to make the playoffs, but they're 50-1 right now at Bet Online to win the Stanley Cup. We don't even know, crazy enough, if they are going to even have an opportunity to get into the playoffs if the season resumes. What if they just say the end of the regular season, that's it, and all the teams that are in the playoffs currently get in, and the teams that are out, you snooze, you lose. Sorry, you're not going to get into the playoffs. That's the concern with betting the Rangers in a futures wager at this point. But if they get in, look, I mean, their offense is fantastic. We saw Mika Zibanejad score 5 goals in one game before the break in a Rangers win. They've got great offense. I think their defensive play's gotten better. And their goalies, they've been dealing with some injuries. They've been dealing with some issues, car accident in the case of Igor Shesterkin and Georgiev, the other goalie. Those are the 2 goalies they've been going with. They're going to get rest. All these teams are going to be ready to make that push, and I think ready to make it a strong push into the playoffs, even if they resume and give these teams a chance to get in. The New York Rangers, if they somehow get in, 50-1 to win the Stanley Cup, could they be dangerous and knock off a favorite or two? I think they could.
Yeah, favorites here in the East, obviously being the Bruins and the Lightning. But then we flip it over, Adam, and take a look at the Western Conference here. Got some teams loaded up right behind them. The Avalanche, the defending Stanley Cup champion St. Louis Blues at plus 950, and the Golden Knights at 950 as well. So you have some chances. Hey, look, not everybody can get to the Stanley Cup final. So if you took it at the Bruins and the Lightning, they're not each going to get to the Stanley Cup. Only one of those can get through there. Let's talk some Western Conference hockey. Who's the favorite in there? And give me a long shot that you think might be able to get it done.
Yeah, I'm up on the Blues. That was the one Western team I took back in January with those 2 other ones. They're all buying into what the coach said last year when he took over the reins, and it's carried on into this season. They're the team that they know the style that they're good at. They know that they can play in their own zone. They've got the big hitters on the back end. They've got the phenomenal goalie who, when those defenders, fail or penalized or whatever, Binnington stands on his head. They all buy into the system. They're great on the counterattack, and they've got leadership in Ryan O'Reilly. They've got size. They hit a lot. They are built for the playoffs. That is why we saw them in the Bruins last year. There's lots to talk about how fast the NHL is now. Yes, it's fast, but when you got little wingers like the Bolts have or the Avalanche have in the corners with some of these bruising defensemen, it wears you down in 7-game series. I took the Blues. I'm happy with it. It's still their conference to lose. I think that the Golden Knights and the Colorado Avalanche are supremely talented on the front end, but we know playoff hockey is defensive-minded. The Colorado Avalanche look very susceptible at times in the second half of the year. They've lost to the Kings twice. They've surrendered third period leads. Every team does that, but I am trusting the Blues for the moment. If the playoffs were happening tomorrow, the Blues would be the team that I would say, all things being the same in a 7-game series, this team's going to edge it out against every Western opponent. As far as a long shot, if I was looking right now, it's tough. I said to stay away from Pacific Division teams because any day with the way the NHL was going there, the standings were changing, which team was in, which team was out. Edmonton started to surge a little bit. Vegas took the top spot briefly. Vancouver dropped off a little bit. Calgary's struggling. Arizona might be out. I would say you're looking at the Central Division teams, and that's kind of where you want to look for the West. So maybe a long shot might be Nashville, who can still get in, and it might even pass the Dallas Stars as a wild card. So the Predators might be my long shot if they start to get their defensive end going. But for now, Blues is all I want to stick with, and I'm happy with it.
Some good shots to look at here, Chris, as we bring you in talking about the Western Conference. Obviously, we know the Avalanche, Blues, and Golden Knights on that top round, but you're still looking at the Stars, Oilers, and even the Nashville Predators, which might have a shot. And also, we're talking about teams that if you were hot in the regular season, you're going to take a month and a half off and cool back down. Some of these teams now might be the shot to take a long shot, saying, hey, you know what? They could be as hot as anybody coming in, because we know in the NHL, you stand on your head in net, you have a really good shot to advance. Let's talk some Western Conference championship odds here, Chris.
So yeah, this is where I like the long shots on the Western side, and I completely agree that the Predators are my team. I got 22-1 right now, and it's the same logic and philosophy that I had for the East. Is I need a star, I need a goalie, and you're right. This is an entirely new season. Okay, they basically are going to have an off season off, and then they're going to have some type of warm up, and then they're going to get out there and they're going to play playoff hockey. Is what I think is going to happen if we get any type of finality to this season. With that being the case, I like experience. I get that with Pecorine. I get that with Josie. I think that I've got a star that I can trust. I can put the puck in the net, and I've got a goalie that when he is hot, he's one of the best goalies in the league.
There we go, Ian. When we talk about it, Chris ready to throw those catfish on the ice down there in Nashville. How about you, Ian? A little bit of Western Conference talk here. Go ahead.
I'm going to push back. Nashville stinks. I mean, I've been saying that for absolute months. I mean, this team's just an absolute
It's a new season, though.
That's it. It's a new season.
Tell him. Don't let him get over on you, Chris. Don't let him talk the trash talk like that. No way.
Kyle Turris, Matt Duchene. You can't find these guys with a telescope on the ice. I mean, they have been absolutely invisible most of the season. Their offense has been awful. Their defense has fallen off a cliff. I mean, Roman Yossi's still pretty good, but Ekholm's game's gone way down. You know, Ellis has been in and out with injuries. That blue line's just – Dan Hamhuis looks like old man Winter on the ice. He can barely move. I mean, he's an absolute, pylon out there most nights. I mean, this – and the goaltending, forget it. I mean, Pekka Rinne's been awful. Maybe the rest is going to help him. He is an older guy. He's had injuries. Maybe he's going to get a little fresher going in. But I think his best days are behind him from a goaltending standpoint. So Nashville, I wouldn't have interest in. I know they've got the experience. The team that I'm stunned that this team's on the same playing field from an odds perspective right now as Nashville in the West. The Dallas Stars are the team I'd look at. 18-1 to win the Stanley Cup. They beat Nashville last year in the first round. They're better than Nashville, in my opinion. They got 4 better lines. They've got a much better defense with Klingberg and Esa Lindell and company. It's a very good blue line. I trust Ben Bishop way more than any goaltender Nashville puts in there. I think they're better coached. You know, I don't like the John Hines hire that Nashville made, replacing Peter Laviolette with him, a guy that's done absolutely nothing from a success perspective in the NHL with New Jersey. He's supposed to have a great Devils team with John Hines this year. What happened? It was an absolute disaster for him there. So Dallas is that team to me from a long shot perspective at 18-1. That would be the only team I'd really look at. I mean, Edmonton, Vancouver, kind of interesting at 22-1, 33-1. And again, you've got your favorites that are up there for a reason. You know, Vegas 7-1, Colorado 8-1. St. Louis is not a bad option at 10-1 because they're a little bit down the board a little bit, but still not enough bang for my buck with those teams. Dallas Stars 18-1 would be by the one I'd be most interested in the Western Conference.
Yep, we bring up stuff all the time. We are gamblers at Hardware Handicappers. These lines that we bring up, different books have different lines. Always check out SBRodds.com and sportsbookreview.com for all the latest. But before we end this video, let's have a little bit of fun here. These are the things that I like. You know, when we talk about polls coming out, sometimes it's the fans doing a poll or the press doing a poll or a network doing a poll. The players poll by the NHLPA is hilarious to me because it lets the players vote on certain criteria of what they think are the best in the sport. Adam, I'm going to bring you in. One of my favorite ones to go over here is the fact that they voted Brad Marchand the best trash talker in the NHL and simultaneously the worst trash talker in the NFL. Talk about some of these things that you like to say. It's a lot of fun. At least these get to come out. We can pick through and have some fun about what the players actually think about themselves.
Yeah, Brad Marchand, I had him in my NHL fantasy leagues for 3-4 seasons straight. He delivers on the offensive end. He's on one of the top lines in the NHL. So you see plenty of them. And best trash talker and worst trash talker is because he gives out so much content. That's why, he can get those votes. Interestingly, Doughty was the second in both categories as well. And these are just guys that have a nice beak, and you can and beak, I mean by chirping the opponent, of course. But you can go onto YouTube and you can look up lots of their mic'd up moments where they've got under the opponent's skin. And Brad Marchand, this is him since 2011. In the Bruins Cup win against the Vancouver Canucks, he was under the Sedin's skin the whole series. And these guys are classy twins, right? They hold themselves to a higher standard. Watching him punch them in the face again and again while, trying to kiss other players in the playoffs on the cheek. He does what he can to get under the skin of the opponents. And I think that award was probably the most well voted, I guess, of all of them.
Yeah, it's kind of fun stuff to talk about, Chris, because even when we look at, some being an older generation or who these players actually look up to, because one of the past and presents that they voted in, of course, I mean, look, Wayne Gretzky's got to be number one. It doesn't matter past, present, future, or anything. He's got to be the one where the players would say, who would they want to pay to see play? But it's interesting when you get that nice little mix where Bobby Orr's in there. Even Connor McDavid shows up along with Mario Lemieux. There's a lot of history in the NHL. It's just fun to see who these players respect the most. And just like in the NBA, you would see Michael Jordan be in that top spot. You see Wayne Gretzky there, you should have expected.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I agree that, the nostalgia of the game is great, and you can go through some of the greatest players of all time, but all roads lead to Gretzky. That's just where it all goes. He's at the pinnacle. We use the word GOAT for everything from Tom Brady to Michael Jordan, and hockey is no different with Wayne.
No, I would certainly agree with Wayne. I remember being a youngster growing up in the mid-'80s at the Spectrum, and this was before, because I never got to see Wayne Gretzky play live for the Edmonton Oilers, but my father's company had season tickets to the Philadelphia Flyers, and I wrote the owner of the business how much it would mean to me to get to see Wayne Gretzky in town for the Los Angeles Kings. I did get to see him play. I did get to see him score, but also a Flyers win, so that was an added advantage. If we take a look, Ian, this is funny stuff, because even the personalities come out. You see in the NFL, like before the game, my cleats, my cause, the NHL players vote over 41%, or right around 41%. They want to customize their skates, which can get sort of crazy. You could customize the sticks, the helmet, but it looks like they want the skates. But it is fun just to see what these players actually care about and what they try to vote each other and have some fun with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the NHL's got to get a little more proactive like the NBA does in terms of endorsement deals. I mean, there's certainly a ton of opportunity. You see every NBA player left and right getting these shoe deals and getting all kinds of endorsements with different various entities and outlets and companies. I think the NHL players, I think are going to end up being should go down that road a little bit and explore it a little bit more than they currently do. You mentioned Wayne Gretzky, Donnie, of course, Ed Snyder, longtime owner of the Philadelphia Flyers. He was, and definitely just a great era. And I've actually had the opportunity during this hiatus to watch some classic hockey, and I know here in Canada on the sports channels they've been showing a lot of Oilers games from the 80s, the Kings in the 90s when Wayne played there after the trade, and you just realize the entire package Wayne Gretzky was back then with the vision, the playmaking, the scoring ability, the release. He had everything going for him, which is why he is pound for pound the best player in NHL history. And now, of course, there's the current debate. Will Alex Ovechkin get to Wayne Gretzky's goal scoring record? That's the big question. I think it's going to be very difficult, guys, for him to get it. He's still going to have to play into his 40s. There's going to have to be very little decline in Alex Ovechkin's game at that point, and he's going to have to stay remarkably healthy for the next, at least 6, 7, 8 years and play that long to even sniff a chance at getting Wayne Gretzky's goal scoring record.
Shortened season this year and a shortened season next year possibly, that's not going to help. He needs every game, every playoff. He needs to go deep to be able to do it.
I agree, Chris.
No, there's a lot of stuff that we can go over here with the NHL. It's fun to talk about all this stuff. We talk about Eastern Conference, Western Conference, players polls. There's a lot more. Look, this crew we have assembled here at sportsbookreview.com, we're going to carry you through all the summer. Yes, all the summer with your NHL talk. Make sure you tune in to SBRodds.com, and check out all the latest once these lines do come out. But also, as we always like to say, subscribe to the channel, hit like, comments. The more you guys do that, the more we can put on this great content. For Adam Booth, Chris Giannini, Ian Cameron, I'm Donnie Seymour. Thanks once again for tuning in to sportsbookreview.com's Roundtable videos. We'll catch you on another NHL one shortly.